My name is Igor Iwanek. I teach at Boston University. I teach in the music department. Partly I'm a musician. I also delve into the introspective practices of yoga. So yoga and music, those two things are very close to my heart. And my TED Talk will be from mindfulness to mindfulness. Breath and music, rhythm for your well-being.
Very creative. I love the title. Speaking of the title and the topic, I'm curious, how did you decide to center around this specific topic for the TED Talk?
This topic is very close to my heart. This topic is being a musician, who always looked at music as something beyond entertainment, and also was curious in ways of ways in which we can enter that very quiet space of our mind through music or through other means. These two things were very much very close to me. Also, just because I discovered music through the sense of breath personally. So yes, rather than discovering music through my ears, I discovered music through my nose initially. So breath and music are just interconnected and interrelated for me personally.
That's very interesting to know. What do you feel like makes your take on rhythmic breath control different from maybe other more conventional kinds of meditation?
So first of all, rhythmic breath control is actually a prep for meditation. It's not meditation itself. So rhythmic breath control is just a way to, if you can think of it, we have rhythm on one hand, and then we have breath. And the way we are wired, it is that the rhythm functions kind of as a GPS for the breath, allowing it to to function more wholesomely. Researchers have found that that the most important aspect of our breath is actually how rhythmic it is, and that rhythmic aspect of the breath can be easily influenced by music, by musical rhythm. And so think about it this way: just working with your breath is totally sufficient, but the difference is as if driving somewhere without a GPS and with a GPS, and here the GPS is rhythm.
That's a very interesting way to think of it. Is this something that you've tried to explain to either your students or other people in the past, and has it been received well? Or
Yes, so I actually, I initially this topic was just my own practice, and just felt very private. But I used to live in the Deep South for 9 years. Just recently came back to Boston, and at that time, when I was in the Deep South, at some point I was looking for way to connect with people on musical level, to connect over different types of world music, not necessarily the music that I grew up studying, which was Western classical. And I opened up my house to weekly musical gatherings, which I called Music and Mysticism, and we were talking about different world music traditions. And there I would play some of that music, I would perform some of that music myself. Different people from different walks of life would come in, and slowly, little by little, over time, I started adding just a 5 minute of the rhythm practice connected with the breath, and I started noticing what sort of an impact it has on people, and that led me over time to basically develop workshops on that, and I did travel quite a bit with these in places that you would not necessarily expect that people would be open to that, but because we are also intimately linked by breath, And breath is something we share before we divide ourselves into, politics, religions, and whatever else we divide ourselves into as human beings. On that level, it's an extremely unifying practice.
That's the word I was just about to use, that this all sounds very unifying. I myself love to meditate, but I've never thought about it in the way that you're explaining right now. But I was curious about one thing you said, if you wanted to elaborate about dealing with people that might be a little more resistant, or just I am not familiar with anything like the practices that you're trying to teach, and how that has gone in the past.
Right. So, since you can think of it this way, breath is one aspect of our internal working that we can influence, right? Because I mean, I don't know, the way our liver works, we cannot really at this moment decide how to work that. But breath is one of those things that can happen on some level very um, unconsciously, just for birth survival. But also it can happen on a very conscious level, a very present level. And basically, the moment we engage in breath that is active, that is present, that is conscious, think of it almost as if taking a shower for our mind, for our emotions. And we know very well that we need our showers otherwise daily. So this is that sort of activity that is available to us, that is cleansing, that is quieting. And that's why whenever I encountered people who were resistant and felt out of place initially, about after a couple of minutes of engaging in that, there's just no way to resist it anymore, because it is so primal, it is so basic to all of us.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how something that most people might think is subconscious or come naturally, and see how the impact of that is changed once you just start thinking more consciously about it, as you were saying. Do you feel like mindfulness is something that we have to think about from a young age? How can we help more younger people get more control of their body like they need to be for your method?
So, um, you know, first of all, if let's say proper ways of breathing were taught in kindergarten, then you wouldn't have to really think of mindfulness, as a separate item. But as I found out over time, most of the time people don't know, how to breathe properly. I mean, there are statistics of the CDC statistics that tell us that on average about 85% of people do not breathe correctly. And yet, it's not something that we can choose not to do, right? So you would think that would be something actually taught from day one, yet it isn't. There was a time when I used to teach this in a retirement home, and the feedback that I always got from the people there was, why didn't they learn this earlier? Why only now, in their retirement times? Because again, it's something that we cannot choose not to participate in. It's something that is crucial to our survival. And especially learning to breathe correctly has such amazing health benefits. I mean, if you look at the list of sicknesses that are connected to improper breathing, I mean, the list is so long and basically covers most of what we call the kind of the generational sicknesses of the modern world. And I mean, I'm not going to mention all of them, but for example, had I found out when I was a child that incorrect breathing is the first reason for cavities in your teeth, and sugar is the second reason, well, my life would have been changed. When I was growing up in Poland, and at that time when they were not using anesthetics when they're drilling your teeth.
When
So
did you find out?
When did I find out? Well, I was curious about this all throughout. I must say that um, since I also, outside of studying, I mean, being a lifelong student of Western music, Western classical music, I also study North Indian classical music. And North Indian classical music and Indian teachings of yoga and teachings connected with the breath, there's a kind of a liminal space where both of them meet. So I've been studying that also. For literally as long as I consciously could relate to things. When I came as right after high school to the United States, the first book that I got was exactly on that topic. So I was curious about this from my, let's say, early teens.
That makes sense. I hope that younger people, especially college students, will be able to take a lot of the relevance of breathing from your talk. Speaking of what these students can take, kind of my last question for you is what do you hope people are left with after hearing your talk?
Right. So first of all, I would love to bring people's attention to the fact that if we engage in conscious breath, then we really develop that fantastic freedom for ourselves. That the basically breath empowers us to feel well inside, to feel at peace inside, despite of what is really happening around us, despite of all the commotion in the world around us. So from that perspective, I would just simply like to remind them of what I mentioned earlier, that conscious breath is just like a shower, right, for our emotions, for our agitated mind. And I guess, yeah, the basic takeaway would be just simply to remind everybody to not only take their regular shower, but to also take that emotional shower on a daily basis.
A very refreshing shower indeed. I'm also just curious if there's any aspect of your talk that you wish you were going to be have the time to talk more about, but that you won't be able to, or
There's plenty of that. I mean, the whole process of a offering sharing a TED talk. First of all, there will be also a short part of a practice that I will share with you, and I'm inviting a fantastic percussionist, Indian percussionist, tabla player, to join me in that, so that we don't not only talk about the process, but we also experience that process during the session. But since the nature of the TEDx talk is a limited time frame, the whole process was literally taking away stuff that was important, but that I didn't have time for. Initially, I started um, with looking through the notes for a 8-hour course that I led on the same topic over a number of days, and kind of paring down, this is not essential, that is not essential, that is not essential, and finally kind of distilling the most important aspect, that is shareable, that is immediately accessible to everyone, and that can be experienced in the short time that we'll have for the practice.
that makes sense. Well, thank you so much, Igor. Can you remind us what the title of your talk is and when and where can we go to hear it?
Yes. So I will be a part of the TEDxBU event on April 20th. The event will be starting at 1 p.m. And the title of my talk will be From Mindfulness to Mindfulness: Breath, Rhythm, and Music for Your Well-Being. And that will be happening at HTC at Boston University Howard Thurman Center.
Thank you again, Igor. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariam.